Morning, everybody. Welcome to this week's AMA. It's Joseph Armeanio speaking. I'm here with Alex. How are you doing this week, buddy?
Doing well. Well, busy as usual, but everything is quite good.
Awesome. I was reading through the dev update last night. Looks like you've been busy with your sidechain video. Looks like you.
Yeah, so I also did another video. So I did two videos for the upcoming Ergo Summit. So one is about the Ergo Hack 7 sidechains project, and another title Ergo and Future of Finance. And yeah, it's a bit painful for me to do presentations and so on, but yeah, finally done. So there will be like maybe 50 minutes or even 1 hour of me during the summit. Sorry to those that don't like my appearance, but yeah, it will be a lot of it this time. Maybe next time I'll do less.
I'm looking forward to it. I saw you were also making some progress on the subblocks EIP. You want to give us an update where that is?
Yeah, so working on the EIP text, and yeah, well, some prototyping code is done and slowly improving it. So now the trickiest part is well, about possible commitments to the subblocks structure on chain. And well, how to do it, whether to have any consensus requirements, which would mean soft fork, and well, also more consensus rules after all, or to do it in some totally non-mandatory velvet forking way by just posting it via blockchain transactions, for example, or writing data into the extension section of block, which is still a technique which is not used to the moment. Well, after the mainnet launch, no data written into the extension section as far as I know, but yeah, it's possible to use it to build different protocols, well, with somewhat support from miners, velvets, or soft forkable kind of support. And then, yeah, well, there is a question of possible incentivization if there will be commitments. So, for example, interesting question. Well, all those things I'm working on at the moment are intersecting. So, can we do well, sidechain, which is making progress along with subblocks being apparent on the Ergo main chain? And for example, then miners can be incentivized, right? Can do, for example, well, how to call this subblock merged mining, let's say, right? So to generate sidechain blocks with subblocks and getting rewarded. But well, yeah, things here. Well, quite novel, let's say, and maybe complicated. So, yeah, well, I think to finish and write down my thoughts, possible designs in coming weeks, and then to propose community chat on possible rollout options.
That sounds great. I always look forward to when the community gets to learn about trade-offs, all right?
Yeah, so actually here there are a lot of trade-offs, right? If we're talking about subblocks, so well, on every level of the stack, there are trade-offs. So Yeah, well, that's what I'm working on now. So thinking about them and slowly but surely writing down things to propose then clearly defined choices to the community. And so it seems there are like 9 or 10 Ergo Summit videos already, and the team, as far as I know, is deciding when to have the event. So late December maybe, or after the holidays. Let's see. So maybe it will be in early January, so after the holidays. So, but better to say between holidays, right? Because then there will be some holidays in January, such as Orthodox Christmas and then Chinese New Year, and maybe something else. I'm not even sure. What could it be about? So there are some other things probably to discuss via community chat. So we will consider possible options. So if, for example, the Ergo Summit will be in early January, then we can have some community chats maybe in late December, right? So before Christmas, or maybe between Christmas and New Year, when people usually do have some free time, as far as I know.
No, it's usually a slow time. I got to get my shit together and then make my video for the summit. You're ahead of me.
All right. So how things are going on your end?
So good. I guess probably the most popular topic right now is the Rosen launch.
Yeah, that's what my question about actually. So how things are going? So I see a lot of messages in corresponding groups and so on, but yeah, I'm sorry. So with those videos, I didn't have a chance to take a close look to messages around. So please tell me what's going on there.
Sure. In terms of the watcher setup, man, I'm impressed with our community in terms of tech support. Like yesterday, I got a question. Somebody was having an issue with one of their instances, and I was out and about, and I was like, I'll get to it when I get home. And by the time I got home, the community had already, basically diagnosed the problem, helped them patch it, and they were live, right? So that type of engagement has been awesome to see. I put out a couple of bounties for tutorials, and so far there's been a couple I haven't had a chance to even review them all, but I'm sure that I'll get through that and people will get paid. Right now, it's basically on the guards, right? We did a keygen ceremony about 2 weeks ago, and we've been kind of going through multi-sig sign testing, and it looks like one of the guards, I'm not going to mention who, has made a mistake. So we're going to reset up the keys, go through testing one more time. Then it comes down to kind of a hot, cold wallet management, right? Going to go through some testing where, the bridge itself is live. We're going to start bridging some assets so watchers get a chance to see their software in action. It gives the guards a chance to kind of play around with fund management and flows. And after that, we're going to open the UI for the public. So we're kind of on the march towards that. I'm pretty excited to see that come about. I'm probably going to sync with MHS later today, and then I'll have a better idea of exactly when we're going to shoot for based on current needs. But seeing that type of infrastructure and community support come online has been awesome to see. We've got a decent amount of liquidity depth in Spectrum, which is really needed for the first step. Sometimes people look at bridges and they focus more on like the infrastructure components, but it's also equally important that there's sufficient liquidity there to actually drive the use of the bridge. So seeing that come together and seeing the community support there has been pretty amazing to see. So I'm excited. All right, you ready to jump into questions?
Sounds good. So but some updates first.
Sure.
First, DEXI LP swap transactions done with modified LP backend. So now, the guys are deploying Spectrum testnet UI. And so, hopefully, public testing can be started soon. So we'll collect news about Gleon in coming days, and for chain cache development of the chain cache server. So software you need to participate in chain cache peer-to-peer cache system, digital cache system. So it's on the way, but here it's early to provide any estimations. That's more or less it. So there are some more updates on the way, but also it's too early to provide details in regards with some things for Oracle pools and so on. So I need to finish some writing, and then we'll announce during one of the upcoming developers chats, maybe next week even. Let's see. So let's jump on the questions.
All right. First question is from Jonas. He says, what's the consequence penalty if your laptop for some reason goes offline and you're a watcher? It's very similar to if you were mining and your rig went offline. You're just no longer operating in consensus, and so you're no longer subject to reward because you're not doing any work. In terms of like slashing or losing permits, if your device is offline, you're not submitting any data. So I would, say you're not submitting any false data, right? And that's ultimately what is incentivized. And the Rosen framework is that watcher consensus is verified as true or accurate. So that's not something that you necessarily need to worry about, right? Depending on the number of permits each watcher has, if somebody has, 1 or 2 permits, once those are submitted, they're locked, right? And so then their ability to kind of operate within consensus of Rosen is kind of temporarily locked. So I guess in that case, your laptop doesn't necessarily even need to be on until that process is finalized and your permit as well as the reward is released. Let's see, I'm going to skip one. So I got a question for you, Alex. What is the roadmap for 2024? What would you like to see from the ecosystem as well, Alex?
Sorry, I missed it.
What major aspects of the roadmap are you excited about for 2024?
Let's see. So maybe it would be good to see, at least some prototype sidechain running. Also, Ergo 3 interpreter 6.0. So, it would be good to finally have additions from it. It's maybe not that big, but Still pretty good update. Then subblocks for sure. And chain cache network, so it would be good to see any kind of working network, even in form of network of friends, maybe in 2024.
Awesome.
Is my audio good, by the way, consistent?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. So I assume
I see.
Well.
Yeah, so in incoming stream sometimes cracking. Sorry, so yeah, I'm missing sometimes some words in questions.
It's all right. I would say on my side, aside from what I'm doing with Rosen, I would say side chains excite me probably the most. I was talking to MG Pi yesterday, in fact, and he said, "Hey, I'd like to, start playing around with mining development and, learning more about that." So I'm going to ship him a GPU for Christmas and see if we can use that as his reward for the video that he produced for Rosen instead of just a straight erg reward. I think there's a lot of potential there, that I think as the community explores and develops, it could definitely open up a new path, not only to kind of assist with the functionality of Ergo, but it also could help miners, which is always important in a proof of work system. So I would say that independent of like where I'm focused is probably the most interesting long-term development for me anyway.
Actually, it would be good to see reborn of FIMO and related concepts. Experimentation with emission contracts.
Absolutely.
In 2024. Yeah, and it's also will be a bit more of storage rents, but yeah, not that much. So, mostly it will start to play out starting from 2026, I guess. Right, so 4 years after 2024, maybe from 2025. Let's see, but so with time, this game is going to be more and more interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's see what we got. Looks like we have a question for you, Alex. Do you feel that Ergo is the most advanced crypto on the market? And when Ergo succeeds, what will you do?
So hard to say actually what I will do. Maybe pretty much the same. So just writing some code, hopefully, without disturbing factors. Hopefully, it will be less of them. But yeah, maybe not realistic wish. Let's see.
I think that's a good. I think that's a good wish. There is that you have the ability to step back a little bit and focus on the things that you enjoy or find interesting, right?
The issue is that there is also need to popularize, right, the things I am working on always.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it means I have to use communication channels a lot. And then, they're already more and more busy. So it seems with price going up, there is spike of messages and sometimes not very topical, let's say. So, sometimes people are just writing some things which are not very clear to me. So yeah, let's see how it goes in coming years. But yeah, so about most advanced. I don't know. So maybe it's the most consistent, right? From what I know, because the most sound design here. Maybe because there was focus right on it specifically. But maybe just my impression, because that's the system which I know the best, right? So I spent a lot of time playing with Bitcoin, doing applications. NXT touched Ethereum and some other blockchains just a bit. Actually, so maybe my knowledge there is mostly theoretical. But yeah, after playing a lot with Ergo, so I think at least every choice is logical. Well, at least to me. So to other people, sometimes I need to explain what was the logic, but at least there was some logic, right? So that there were no some bizarre choices, like in other blockchains.
I think it is just I don't know. I see Ergo as something that has solid assumptions that are sometimes conservative, right? I know that there's I don't know, sometimes a certain amount of hype around like, ooh, the most advanced, the newest, zero knowledge of this. But ultimately time will show like quality, right? In terms of some of the trade-offs these systems have. And so, sometimes being on the cutting edge is certainly a benefit in terms of like the mind share of the entire space, but there's also some risky assumptions and trade-offs people inherit. So I don't know if that's always wise. I guess time is the ultimate determination in terms of I guess some design decisions.
Yeah. The good thing is, in this space, which is developing crazy fast, so we need at most a few years, right? So, controversial designs from 2016, 17, let's say Yota, for example, right? So, they already, I think, pretty much failed in proving quality of the design choices. And it was clear probably to people proficient in the space enough from day one probably, but yeah, to the masses it's also quite obvious right now, right?
Yeah, I mean that tends to be how the space goes, and sometimes things have a longer, runtime or shelf life than I would anticipate. But I don't know, it is what it is. All right, let's get into the next question. This was on Twitter, and I said, "Hey, why don't you just ask me live? Why does Rosen need a token?" Right? That's a good question. And, in a way, you can always ask, and to some degree, like if you look at Network Coin, why are tokens needed? When Rosen was, I don't know, a lot less developed than it is now, that was actually an internal discussion we had. And there are some benefits to a token, right? Number one is going to be like capital formation, and it creates incentives. Now, obviously, development has costs, right? Sometimes users don't necessarily see that, where developers do need to eat, right? And there's also a question of like the concentration of tokens as collateral, right? I would say that if you look at, let's say, Bitcoin distribution, right? There's a lot of exchanges out there in the crypto space. Generally, if you look at where value is concentrated, it's based on the few parties out there that have a very high concentration of Bitcoin, right? I think that, to some degree that's misused and abused because, well, power is really concentrated there anyway. And it creates a certain friction to where if I were to spin up a exchange, right, it would be very difficult to compete with the entrenched powers. Now, if you look at the question, why token? I think that's actually one of the most important questions people really need to look at or search when they're looking at tokens as a whole. Sometimes it's more like access to a service, which I would say Rosen, falls under that category. Sometimes it's like, what is it? I don't know, animal coins, frogs and dogs or whatever. And then, I can't say I fully understand the degeneracy there, but it is what it is. And then you also have this question of like emission, right? Because to some degree, you are creating a type of currency. And, what does that currency represent? What is it backed by and how is it emitted? And if we look at like the last cycle, there was a lot of DeFi printers. Is just the best way to put it, where, sometimes they would say, okay, well, you're going to lock, let's say, liquidity in this protocol, and we're just going to, print like crazy and give you some crazy high APY, and the number is really sexy. And then usually what happens is the rapid emission leads to debasement of the currency, and then it, rapidly devalues, right? And then so, for Rosen, one of the key components, at least in my logic of kind of putting together the incentives, is number one, aside from the actual infrastructure required, like the protocol itself, there's a need for liquidity, right? Bridges operate on liquidity. Otherwise, you kind of get into this idea of bridge to nowhere, right? You need infrastructure and liquidity on both sides of the bridge to actually build its use case. So in terms of like the emission of Rosen itself, a large aspect of that is dedicated to forming liquidity on markets, and that's ultimately what will drive its economic use and adoption. It is the ability to take Rosen across different chains and have access to different coins, right? The second aspect to consider is like the backing as a coin is emitted, right? So in proof of work, we look at that as a type of commodity because there's energy and there is computational power that's required to create coins. With proof of stake, I guess it's like some idea of like holding shares, and they kind of, I don't know, mint new shares, I guess. Some kind of like holding a stock that, goes through splits or something, and existing holders receive new shares. With Rosen, it's based on this idea largely of proof of event, right? So there has to be some economic action that's then emitted in parallel with Rosen in the form of like collateral on market. And so the intent there is that as Rosen grows in terms of use and fee accumulation, it actually grows in terms of the available liquidity on market, right? So it's kind of tied to the economic energy of each transaction rather than just, I don't know, sometimes emission with tokens is more just like block time, which usually is hard to I don't know, create any like sustainable means of value other than like social speculation. So if we look at like the actual emission of Rosen as a currency, you know, a huge part of that is simply to, you know, bootstrap liquidity in markets, and then also kind of store a fraction of the transactional energy, and continue to build liquidity depth. That's ultimately going to be, in my opinion, aside from like the technical development, that's the biggest hurdle for a bridge to functionally operate and deliver kind of its use case and tooling to users that makes sense. A lot of the times when I see bridges in the crypto space, the actual liquidity provision is very dominant by a few parties, right? And oftentimes what it is it's a market making tool. It's not as much a tool for the general public to use in terms of trading and system access. Usually, you know, they're going to use other services. And so my hope is that as new projects use Rosen, that available liquidity scales as the bridge grows, not only across ecosystems, but within ecosystems. And then every time an event happens, a portion of that energy is then stored and kind of emitted as collateral onto markets. In using just Ergo, it creates a lot of friction for growth, I would say, because number one, we would have to control enough Ergo to be able to create the incentives for that system. And it's somewhat, I don't know, it's inefficient in terms of capital formation. You know, I wish I had the amount of Ergo that I could just spin that up and say, okay, we're going to have no token. Everything's going to be Ergo based. But yeah, my pockets aren't quite deep enough to make that happen. But, you know, we did want to create a incentive for the Ergo community. And a part of that is using the Ergo blockchain to actually post the permits. And the second part is using Ergo as a means of Sybil resistance to prevent watchers from spinning up at no cost and spamming the network. Now, one nice thing about Rosen is, you know, that's kind of there in the back end of the infrastructure. But for the user, you know, I would hope that Rosen actually offers the same market access and tools to every project, to every coin that it interacts with, and it removes some friction from kind of the, I guess, barrier of entry. Is just a problem. And we go back to where I started, where Bitcoin is very concentrated across exchanges. So then value is very concentrated with very few services. And those parties tend to abuse that power, in my opinion, in terms of the economic costs and control that they exhibit over the crypto space as the whole. I don't necessarily think they're the best actors. So I think that Rosen, in a way, represents I don't know, a more fair system, because we're going to have, you know, clear assumptions in terms of what that is, what the barriers are, what the expectations are, and that's usually buried, right? You know, I've been in this space and heard, you know, I don't know how many people say, win this exchange, win that exchange. And, you know, sadly, there's actually no public information in terms of what that process is, how much that costs, what the carry costs are. You know, it's basically secret. And so I think that having transparency in terms of the costs and expectations and all of that is just a better step for the crypto industry as a whole. Let's see. All right. So this says, Kushti, your videos at Ergo Summits are the best content always. It gets the most views. Everybody wants more Kushti, not less. That's true, buddy.
All right, thanks. So actually, I thought about experimenting with more interactive forms, maybe. So for example, organizing Twitter space with first some presentation of mine, right, and then free discussion.
Yeah, I think
yeah, well,
I,
the only issue is to find time, but yeah, maybe in 2024 we can try something like that.
yeah, I think it's great to explore new mediums. I hear that today we're streaming across multiple platforms, Twitch included. It'd be nice to see more engagement, across different social media platforms, whether it's Twitter or whatever. Um, I'm definitely with you on that. Let's see. Next question. The EF got a significant donations for the purpose of marketing. How does the EF intend to proceed? I would say that's currently an ongoing discussion, right? We're trying to revamp the marketing machine a little bit. If you look at Spectrum, they did allocate a pretty hefty percentage of their mission to the EF to maintain, the core protocol of Ergo, support research development, community initiatives, all of that. And Rosen has done the same, in terms of the Rosen allocation. My take is I'm going to recuse myself from any votes or any oversight of how those funds are spent, because I just think that's the best way to proceed there. But having, research, educational tools, community engagement, events, there's a broad spectrum there in terms of purpose of marketing, and as well as addressing some market access issues. I do think that, long term, that's definitely something that we're continuing to explore and want to address. Any feedback or take on that, Alex?
Yeah, so recently, I've started to organize information about bounties and, assigning more bounties across repositories. And it seems, there is some feedback already, in form of new developers joining, contributing. So, pretty excited about that in particular. And yeah, marketing machine. So, it's already is a bit better, probably. But yeah, I'm not very proficient in that. It's still in the process of reorganization. So, after holidays, probably. It will start to work in its new form.
All right. FC says, afternoon, Alex, morning, Joe. What are the DeFi tools within the Ergo ecosystem you'd expect other change would want to implement, utilize? Next, is there a roadmap or playbook for other chains to see this?
Sorry, missed part of the question.
Sure. What DeFi tools within the Ergo ecosystem would you expect other chains would want to utilize or implement themselves? Next, is there a roadmap or playbook for other chains to see this?
Still missed to see what? Sorry.
To see the, DeFi ecosystem or tools that Ergo has?
Probably that's mostly about peer-to-peer DeFi, right? And what else could it be about? Emission contracts, right? So FIMO, a lot of other options. Like what we are calling DegenFi, right? So, auction coin and stuff like that. So, I don't know. It would be good to find some time, right, and to do some writing on that. So on both the concepts with definitions and why they appeared in a clear form on Ergo specifically.
Yeah, I think we have some unique tools in terms of using proof of work. Definitely some, interesting DGen-Fi frameworks with clear assumptions. I hope that continues to be something the community kind of plays with. And then I think it's also important to bring in the mixer. Privacy is definitely a potential use case or benefit to other ecosystems. But yeah, I think that's something we should explore, refine, and communicate more effectively.
Yeah. So privacy applications could be, I guess, useful for Bitcoin even, right? So maybe it's possible to add just a little bit to the current Taproot based tools, which are allowing for Schnorr signature already.
Mm-hmm.
And then then do mixing and stealth address schemes like Ergo already has. It's actually would be very beneficial for the Bitcoin community, right? Because they try to do non-interactive mixing, but not so non-interactive, so-called sneaker application. Yeah. So, for sneaker, there was a requirement for public bulletin board, right? So for some trusted medium like a website or maybe a peer-to-peer network, right? But aside of that, so once you have this magic public bulletin board, so it's called non-interactive, but yeah, in fact this public bulletin board is doing this a little bit interactive, right? Unlikely anyone can come with any serious definition which will allow for calling this non-interactive scheme. But anyway, so this sneaker application attempt failed, right? Because of, I believe, as usually, because, complexities, developers have when they're trying to implement anything non-trivial on a Bitcoin blockchain. Copying just additional Sigma protocol in addition to Schnorr Bitcoin already has would allow for a lot of privacy applications. It would be good to discuss that for sure with Bitcoin developers. The only issue here, is that usually it's a closed world.
Yeah.
For example, I participated in the Scaling Bitcoin workshop back in 2018. It was Scaling Bitcoin Tokyo edition. And now there is no scaling Bitcoins, and from what I know, discussions are pretty much closed, right? So they're happening within the Bitcoin developers, so-called just. It's not that easy to propose anything to Bitcoin developers in a convenient way, right? Because, I'm also not fond of spending a lot of time to get there. for DeFi stuff, peer-to-peer finance, and so on. Maybe it would be good to do just some introductory materials, right, for average users, and then developers will come for details, right? And it's not that hard to get them, I guess, for people coming to the Ergo ecosystem, for developers coming.
All right. Next question is from Kushti Crypto.
So sorry. So actually, I thought to do some writings of that kind, but yeah, it's hard to find time for everything. So if any other guy is willing to jump on classifying and writing thoughts on what we already do have here. So observing things and why they happened on Ergo, what makes Ergo unique here. So that would be great, right, for the whole ecosystem and for the whole cryptocurrency space even.
Yeah, I think that type of collaboration is needed sometimes. I don't know. Bitcoin community has enough infighting anyway. I don't know how open they are to external, feedback or discussion. Let's see. Kushti Crypto, would Rose and Erg parameters be changed at any point if watchers can't afford the minimum required? What would that look like? The answer is yes. First, I think it's important to understand why. We wanted to have the barrier of entry a somewhat predictable cost in terms of spinning up the watcher itself. That's something that the guards will manage. But there's also the question in terms of the amount of permits circulating and what the system itself needs to scale, right? And there's actually somewhat of a trade-off here that's important to look at. The cost of a permit represents the cost of dishonesty, right? And I would say that is a good security assumption in terms of having kind of that pain for people that want to try to modify the software and report inaccurate transactions. Now, if the system does hit a point of congestion where there's not enough circulating permits in the system, the guards will need to lower the cost of permits. Now, let's say that somebody has, currently, created 10 permits in the system, right? The guards could potentially lower the cost of that to where they wouldn't actually need to do anything other than, update their instance. And what they would find is, let's say that, we cut the cost from 3,000 to 1,000, suddenly they would have 30 permits. So it would give the system greater ability to kind of scale with incoming traffic. Now, one benefit of having incoming traffic is it does create an incentive for the watchers to expand their portfolio of permits so they can be involved in more transactions. And so I'm not exactly sure what that trade-off or balance points is going to be in terms of, watchers desiring to extend their profitability versus kind of the congestion based on the amount of permits in the system. But it's something that, guards collectively need to watch and will probably periodically need to intervene. Then you also have this idea that, how does more traffic through Rosen impact the, valuation of Rosen? I don't know. That's something that is based on, factors that don't exist yet. So there's no real data to make a conclusion, but I would assume that as Rosen grows in demand, then it will have some implication on, the value of RSN. So it may need to be adjusted, in that case too, to try to keep the network open for new participants. So, on one hand, we have like the cost of dishonesty and kind of the barrier to entry, so that, the average person can hopefully consider joining and being a part of Watcher consensus. And then we also have to look at like traffic and how that will scale and how that will congest the system and how that potentially could impact demand. So there's a lot of factors to consider there. I don't have any like concrete answers because I have no data to look at. But I at least have an idea what to watch. Let's see. Banana Hex says a minimum of 70% plus one of the total number of watchers is required to trigger an event. So 70% of all watchers need a report and max 20 commitments. So how do the 20 get picked? Are all permits tied up? So it's a race, right? You want to report, keep your software live, report, and hopefully have permits on hand that you can be a part of that watcher consensus. As I just stated, if the system needs more permits, the guards will need to lower the cost of permits to prevent, too much congestion. It creates its own, I guess you could look at it like a type of mempool, where, sometimes in, blockchains, when, the throughput is kind of stressed based on the volume of transactions, you have transactions that are kind of floating there, not included into blocks. Well, and within Rosen, it's kind of the permits that, trigger the event is somewhat similar to including transactions in a block. And I would assume that somewhat similar to how most blockchains are structured, there's kind of a free market or incentive for watchers to include or report on the transactions that are going to pay them the most, right? And that will be a race, somewhat. So it'll be interesting to see long term. I'm not sure. I mean, I guess in theory we could see, let's say user A wants to use Rosen and they want to do so with, let's say, greater speed. Maybe there will be a fee market that will develop. So, it gives watchers an incentive to report my transaction first, right? And there's always some potential for race conditions there. It's something we're going to have to watch. Let's see, next question. Are Ergo watchers involved in ETH ADA swap, or is the logic Ergo centric? Yeah, the Ergo watchers are always going to be reporting to the Ergo blockchain. Now, what watchers are going to do is they're going to kind of watch the inbound guard wallet. So that means that you would have a watcher that reports to the Ergo blockchain that is watching the Ethereum blockchain or watching the ADA blockchain, right? Let's see. Alex, question for you. Is storage rent one-time fee after 4 years, or does it charge you every block after 4 years? So I guess we have some questions about storage rent in the structure.
Yeah, so it's once per 4 years. Then yeah, so for big boxes, then if big amount of Erx locks, then yeah, the box will be there for maybe centuries.
All right. Next question is from Banana Hacks. Kushti, what's your favorite application you've worked on, are working on, or plan to work on? Dexy, Cane Cash, or perhaps something more exotic in the future?
Oh, I don't know. I have to work on the reference client, the nodes mostly, right? Then also contributing, it seems, more and more to the Ergo 3 interpreter, right, after some time. So, well, I actually started the repository, but yeah, now, well, it's still mostly maintained by Morphic, but yeah, I'm contributing more and more there. For chain cache, I'm mostly just reviewing what Soysor is doing these days, and advising what to do. But yeah, it would be great to contribute for more, but the time is very limited. So, what I'm thinking to be focused on is on contracts, right, and on standardizing them in an observable future. So, the first goal is to finalize current contracts and to fix them with CCIP0, so Chain Cache Improvement Proposal number 0. Right, and then add new kinds of contracts for custom tokens and so on with follow-ups, CCIPs. Develop in this regard the protocol and its client, the Chain Cache server, and probably alternative clients in future, like done with the Nostr protocol. Nostr is a peer-to-peer, kind of messaging protocol. It was positioned initially as a peer-to-peer Twitter, but yeah, actually it's more foundational protocol. That's already enough, so I'm willing to work on more, but yeah, I'm limited after all, just a human being.
Yeah, working with Nostr has kind of been an ongoing discussion I've been having with Nemo lately in terms of potential ergo-centric implementation.
Yeah, so actually in many applications they can augment each other, right? Blockchain protocols and peer-to-peer messaging. So actually investigated a little bit different applications built on top of Nostra, such as peer-to-peer classifieds applications. So, maybe at some point it would make sense to implement, for example, classifieds for chain cache participants, network participants, right on top of Nostra, and maybe using Nostra for spreading some additional off-chain information.
All right, let's see. Augustus Kent said the top 100 wallets all hold over 100K ergs. Does this surprise you, or is it to be expected? I think that, given the size of the, let's say valuation of that is what, 100 and something. I haven't looked at the price. 100 and something, $1,000. I think that in terms of like the barrier to be a top 100 wallet is actually is still pretty low. If you look at like the value in fiat terms relative to other ecosystems. So does that surprise me? Not greatly, especially given market conditions. I know that there's probably been a lot of accumulation over the last couple of years. Let's see. Hi, Kushti Joe. Any update about Gluon? We had a meeting with Bruno last week, Alex?
Yeah, true. So there was a meeting with Bruno and the team. So things are going quite well there. So currently contracts are under review. And for public testing, I have forgotten what is the plan. Maybe, you know.
I think that there's still a little bit of refinement that they want to do on a couple of different actions. But things were coming together. I was impressed. I could see their, mock UI and kind of look. We were reviewing the contracts, so it's a work in progress. I would leave any updates to that specific team.
Yeah, but it seems at least testnet public testing. It's pretty close. So
yeah,
contracts are more or less ready for that. Not sure about UI, but it's probably also quite good for testnet based public testing.
Right. What else do we have? It looks like PW says, what are the differences between Midnight and privacy tooling on Ergo? I'm not terribly familiar with Midnight, if I'm totally honest. I think
I believe Midnight is so-called privacy chain, right? So everything is private there with ZK snarks. With the help of ZK snarks. And for Ergo, it's basically a set of applications, right? So the chain itself is not private. As in many use cases, privacy is not needed even, right? So privacy chains have been solved with usually a lot of statements about individual rights for privacy and so on, which are totally valid for sure. Right. There is definitely financial privacy as a human right and so on. In many scenarios also, you don't need for privacy from your counterparties, but for transparency, right? So if you donate some funds to a charity, you definitely willing to get transparency from the charity, right? Not privacy of spendings. And so on. So, then in Ergo, privacy is left to application level. So it's, individual choice.
All right. Any other questions to cover? It looks like we've pretty much gone an hour.
Good questions.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to get on here and discuss things with the community. I'm definitely looking forward to that Ergo Summit. So definitely everybody out there, stay tuned. In terms of when that is, that way, you can tune in. Hopefully we see some more community engagement, some applications out there that are willing to submit content. And it's always awesome to see the community come together in different things. That's probably my favorite part of the space. So those of you out there that, we're spinning up watchers or helping other people set up infrastructure, cheers, hats off to you.
All right. And I think it's also good to rotate AMA hosts, right?
Yeah, I've been really, really proud of the Ergo community in terms of like the AMAs. I did that for a long time. And then I said, hey, I'm going to drop the ball and see if people, pick it up. And, QX and a lot of community developers have, really stepped up to the plate, producing more content. And it's great because I actually watch them, right? Whenever I make a video or something like this, it's painful to watch it. So I don't even do it. So hats off to QX and everybody out there that's contributing to the AMA. I hope we see more of that.
Yeah, so let's see what will be the faces of the next AMA.
Let's see. All right, everybody. I hope everybody out there is doing well. Has a great week. Happy holidays as the seasons approach. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Hopefully, you have good food, good time, good family, all that good stuff.
Yeah, have a good day or night, everyone. So see you. Maybe not the next week. Let's see who will be on the MA next week. But yeah, see you soon. Anyway, bye. My pleasure.